with you from our Bucket List AB campaign efforts for this winter, and certainly appreciate you taking some time to join what will be a quick update just with regards to some of the details of what and how and where things have shaken out as we roll this out through this past few months. So thanks again. And what I just wanted to bring up first of all was just in terms of this year's partners. This year's partners, we've seen obviously Tourism Medicine Hat, the town of Pincher Creek, Alberta Culture and Tourism, inclusive of their Frank Slide Interpretive Center, the Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump, and the Remington Carriage Museum. This also is inclusive to our friends over at Visit Newell, and then as well with Castle Mountain Ski Resort, and then of course in partnership with Travel Alberta. So you will notice that one that has been removed was the folks from Crow's Nest Pass. They were a partner coming into it this fall, but unfortunately there has been some shakeup that's happened at Crow's Nest Pass, and they had removed themselves in about November of this year. So as it goes, and then this year with Lethbridge, they took a pass on winter, as did Waterton. Waterton was doing some restructuring within the chamber, and they have committed, and they are really keen. I was actually chatting with them a couple days ago about what's happening for summer. They actually gave me a call to find out, and as well with Will from Lethbridge asked the same question. So it wasn't out, they're not out completely. It was just that they were out for this past winter, just due to some reshuffling and some other things that were going on. While I'm going through this, if anybody has any questions or comments, please advise. And hopefully you're all been keeping warm. This winter thing is keeping moving. You must be stoked about that, hey, Cole? You just got to keep the snow moving.
Well, it's been a challenging few weeks up here. February has had its good and its bad, but thankfully we got in the holiday break with pretty good weather. But this past weekend was abysmal, absolutely abysmal.
Right. Yeah. And it's right across the province too. I mean, just talking up in the northern part, or even up in up towards like Canusu, Cold Lake. I mean, it's living up to its name up there too. It's amazing. It's just unbelievable. Now we just need to get the snow keeping coming. Oops. Cancel. All right, there we go. Awesome. So I'm not sure if you've had a chance. Maybe I can just do that right now, actually. And what I want to do is just show you some of the things. Bucket list. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to go onto the Bucket List AB website recently, but what you'll find on here now is you'll find a whole series of new winter-based itineraries that are specific for your destinations and for your communities. So if you haven't had a chance yet to jump onto the Bucket List AB site in the last couple of weeks, if not this winter, I really encourage that you do, because we've invested a lot of time and energy in which to not only create our content and the stories, but also some itineraries for you that and for the audiences that if you can help us promote are great, and ultimately you can have ownership to this content as well, because we are happy to share these itineraries with you for your own sites and for your own efforts as well. So if you haven't had a chance yet, just a quick plug to definitely jump onto the Bucket List AB site for this winter, so you can get a chance of some of the things that we've done there. Now, how are we promoting it? So what we've gone and done is we've worked out some new relationships in order to give us some geographical reference and some specifics to maybe some regions that we've underlooked from past years. You know, we've been very focused on working with influencers out of Calgary, and we've been obviously, continue to keep Calgary as a sweet spot for us, and certainly the work that Vovia is doing in terms of the media buys are specific to Calgary. But at the same point, we've formed some new relationships with Eno. These are the guys out of Cranbrook. So they've got some stuff that some really good reach in through Kimberley, Fernie, and Cranbrook. And then on the other side, supporting our friends out from Medicine Hat and in through Cypress and over in Newell, as well with Discover Moose Jaw. Both of those have really sizable Facebook presence, 10,000 plus on each of their sites. So we've been working with them in terms of funneling content and having some suggested posts. And then also, some of you have seen visits from Andrew Penner with some upcoming Herald coverage, which actually is going to be out this coming weekend. I was going to have it out earlier, but it just was when it could fit into their paper. So I'll have an update for you next week with some links to that content as well. And then certainly across Snow Seekers, we've been busy promoting the communities and the destinations as part of the relationship over the last bunch of months. So where are we at? We are obviously through late January and through February. We had obviously visitation into your communities. Some of you might have asked, like, why was it so late this year in terms of with late January? We didn't receive our actual funding approval we actually got it we didn't even receive the actual signed document until the middle of January. It took us about almost 2.5 months this year in which to see the approval come from Travel Alberta. They're really buckling down, which is appreciated in terms of ROI, and they really want to see that ROI story. And so there was quite a lot of back and forth, and hats off to Jace from Tourism Medicine Hat for being that quarterback and working with the team from Travel Alberta and us at Seekers in which to get that done, because there was quite a bit of back and forth, and it did take us, as mentioned, until early January in order to see that approval. So then February through this 15th of March, we've been working with Vovia in which to deliver a bulk of that campaign spend. We've obviously got targeted Facebook and Google advertising that's happening through Vovia. And then the partnership through these local partners that I mentioned in terms of folks like discovermoosejaw.com or Eno out of Cranbrook, and working with them in which to pass over that content and push through the details that we need to have in which to make the magic happen for generating click-throughs and business to your site. Because of the late start, we've asked Travel Alberta and now had approval. We'll have the opportunity in which to full guns blaze right through till the middle of April. So, as things evolve, what we're actually doing is we're updating the content, and we'll be updating the content over this next week to be a bit more spring. We've obviously given a good winter push through February and March, but now with the ability in order to provide our final report to Travel Alberta on the 26th of April, it gives us the opportunity in order to obviously continue to beat the drum right through till that time. So we definitely are going to be and will continue to feature and update the content so that it's got some spring appeal to it as well. And then certainly targeting through and continue to target Calgary and then Western Saskatchewan and Eastern British Columbia. So just a couple of screenshots here. We use what's called hash tracking.
Jim, it's Duncan speaking. Can I just address one piece in it, because it does impact provincial parks and the cultures, historic sites, and museums. Because of the election, as we've talked in the past, and just for everyone to know that the provincial election has also impacted as you were saying, the delay from Travel Alberta. Travel Alberta is impacted by the provincial election. It took them some time in order to be able to get an exemption for marketing. And it's because Travel Alberta's primary mandate is marketing that the province gave them an exemption. Whereas parks and culture, it's not a primary role. So we've had to follow the policy that has been fairly recently released related to communications that will occur during the election and then before and after and so on. The election hasn't been called yet. We're still waiting. But with respect to this particular campaign, with parks and culture sites, we will not be able to be in the marketplace at all during the 28 days of the election. So that will impact this particular program. So if things are delayed and the election is occurring, we have to be silent in areas where we've paid for advertising.
Yeah,
thank you so much for raising that, Duncan. I really appreciate that. I think even I've been asked to do a public presentation, and I've been told that I have to go to the executive director for approval for that. Maybe, Duncan, can we chat offline about the impacts of things like the Herald article, and just making sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's?
Yeah, exactly. Because none of us want to get stuck in an uncomfortable position. But yes, you're right. For others, this is new for us. We've gone through a lot of elections, but the rules for this particular election have been extremely onerous, and it's been extremely challenging because they've been dealing with a window of 5 months without having a real target. And we've been pretty much stopped since November as far as doing various advertising. There's been some windows where we've been able to, but anyways, it's just something that in the provincial public sector, there are some challenges that will be over as soon as the election's completed.
I can't wait till that day. I'm sure you guys can't wait till that day either.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
We've had our moments.
Right? Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting times. But hey, as we know, we just keep moving forward with what we can do. And I'm definitely both on the Alberta Park side and on the Alberta culture and history side in terms of your world, Duncan and Shaylin. We definitely are very sensitive, and I do have that, as soon as you guys let us know, I'm sure we'll all know when the writ's dropped, that 28-day hiatus kicks in, and Vobi is aware, and we're all aware, so we'll be definitely sensitive to that, and we definitely are rolling it out based on those plans.
And just a point about the Calgary Herald, if the article is in the Herald before the 18th of March, we're okay.
Okay,
and
that's good.
when it's
we've been given.
And that's when it has to be.
Yes, but after that, we're getting into a danger zone. So it's just that we do have a window right now where we've got a green light, but it turns amber on the 18th, and it's going to go red sometime. Because we do know that the election will be completed by the May 31st. It must be completed. So as the closer we get to May, we know it's going to be in either April, May, or the latter part of March. But stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right. Absolutely. So just to that, I just wanted to give us some insights here. So we use this called hash tracking, and hash tracking allows us in order to take a look at the success of a hashtag. So if we take a look at what's happened over this last year with Bucket List, we've now seen over 495 contributors just on Instagram and Twitter alone. Those contributors have generated just over 3,200 posts with the tag Bucket List AB inclusive, which has given us a reach to just over 1.4 million very targeted consumers. These are obviously outdoor explorers. These are people who are interested in skiing and are interested in winters and are interested in outdoor sports, period. So I just wanted to throw that up there just so that you can take a look at some of the details in terms of what we're seeing behind the scenes as this campaign continues to grow momentum. I think we're now, with Bucket List hashtag AB, that's now what? Is it a 3-year program, Duncan? Originally with Circle Tours, it didn't have the hashtag attached to it. I think the hashtag only came to it about 3 years ago, was it?
It would have been the summer, I think, of 2017, I think. It may have been 2016.
Only 2 years.
I'm sorry, my memory's not that sharp today.
No, it's all good. But anyways, I just wanted to give you some insights in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the amount of people that are now using that tag, and certainly the amount of content that you have as an organization. Any of you can just go into Twitter and Instagram or anywhere and search that Bucket List AB tag, and participate and bring some of that content forward. You do have two people who are, you know, next to us at Seekers, obviously. We do have two dedicated social media ambassadors behind Bucket List AB. You obviously have its own channels. There's its own Facebook, its own Twitter, and its own Instagram page. And we've got both Rhonda and Quinton who are curating and managing that content on your behalves. And certainly if you haven't had a chance to engage with those channels, please do. Well, at the same time, I definitely encourage you in which to just do some hashtag searches with Bucket List and see the different and the variety of content that people are tweeting and sharing and posting about your experiences.
Can I just ask, we haven't been part of the Bucket List campaign for all that long, certainly not from its inception, but who owns right now bucketlistab.ca and these social media channels?
So the channels, we have them at Seekers, but the relationship is such that the ownership would be through Tourism Medicine Hat, because they're ultimately the partner lead between yourselves as the collaborators and Travel Alberta.
Okay.
So as far as the domain ownership, it would be under Seekers, but it's just a matter of just transferring them over, and the passwords and everything, Jace and the team at Tourism Medicine have all that information as well. Fair enough?
Yeah, cool.
So, I mean, in terms of that whole hashtag usage, I think of it as the Dewey Decimal System and as the library. What is that hashtag and why is it relevant? Well, if you were looking for a book on Spanish, back in the day, you'd go to the library and you'd want to learn Spanish. Well, then you'd go and she'd give you a reference number. He'd give you a reference number as the librarian. You'd go down to 7.1444, whatever it is, and you'd find that book on Spanish. Well, with Bucket List AB now, we have that tag, and it is a reference point for the region. And certainly now, as mentioned with those stats, we've got a lot of content behind that tag. And so certainly appreciate you continuing to research it and engage with it, because we should, and you should have quite a lot of content from us. Nancy from our team should have delivered each of you a Dropbox, which is inclusive of those assets. That would be video, photography, and suggested posts. Those posts, we try to make it as easy as possible. And it's not only for you as the main stakeholders, but also this has been given out to any of the restaurants, any of the hoteliers, any of the experience providers across the region. They don't get the same level of content that you do. Obviously, as a paid investor, you receive high res images. They receive low res. They don't receive video. They receive little video shorts, but you get full video bundles. And but they do receive the suggested posts, so that again we can create that sense of critical mass.
Jim, it's Duncan here. That just with that particular area that you're talking about, is something that I guess it's Nancy and your team, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I think we'll be just doing some follow-up, because it just seems like in our worlds there's so many things happening, just trying to make sure that we're able to capitalize on all the benefits of a program. But I believe there's a lot of assets on content that's currently on your platform that we really need to start to use more, and like those in videos and so on, have them on our particular websites of the sites that connect with, and then also have our creative services team working with some of those assets to start integrating into some of our broader advertising campaigns. I think that's it'd probably be the same with parks and possibly other stakeholders, as far as just being able to make sure that we're utilizing all the assets that we've been generating through this initiative over the years.
You bet, Duncan. And so if you haven't already, please just touch base with your creative services folks and your team, because if they haven't received that folder from Dropbox, it's just sitting there waiting for you guys to access it. So right. Just like we did in the summertime, please just connect us in with that team, and we'll make sure that we score them what you have ownership of. Excuse me. And that's all on the video, the photos, and on editorial as well. You'll receive alternate versions of the stories so that you can use them for your site or for vacation guides, or you buy an ad in AMA magazine and they say, oh, we've got some content or some space where you can put in a story. Well, then you could give them a story like this to use for their own purposes. So over this next bunch of weeks, and certainly appreciating, where we're at with the election, we're beating the drum on the historical sites. We're working in order to obviously fulfill our commitments in terms of deliverables over this next bunch of weeks, Duncan, prior to the writ being dropped. So I know Vovi has turned up the gas just with regards to the marketing spend and all that good stuff, so that we don't run short and run into a situation where we don't make our numbers. So we're doing that now. We've got efforts across all of these various channels. Shaylin, have you received from a Dropbox standpoint, some of the assets, because you could be promoting not only Castle Park, but also Pincher Creek and also Castle Mountain Ski Resort. Have we given you access to those assets as well?
I think I just have the results from that last photo shoot with Kelly.
Okay.
But if you could send me the rest of the files, we have a digital asset management system within the government. So if I put them on that centralizes it so that other park staff can also utilize it. So even if I'm not necessarily doing a campaign, we can utilize that high resolution images and video for sure.
And then Duncan, you're going to connect us with your creative team?
Yes, and I think it's best that can just connect Nancy with our creative services folks. I find sometimes I hate being in the middle. We need to keep the stuff rolling.
And Cole, would that be you at Castle, or is that Hamish, or who best is for a content management side for you?
That's typically Nick Thornton. He's our content development coordinator. He's full-time during the winter season. So I have just discovered, or rediscovered maybe is an appropriate way to say it, these assets in my inbox. So yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yes, it does. No problem. So we'll have some more for you, obviously, here in the next bit. Now, if you wanted us to just work through with Nick, then just make an introduction of Nancy to Nick, and we'll make sure that he becomes our point of contact, or we CC you, or whatever you'd like to have happen, just so that it's not missed.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So yeah, so then obviously our goal over this last bit is to obviously drive overnight visitation, and certainly for Castle, increased WOW card sales as well as lift ticket sales. We certainly are looking at and concerned with increasing overnight stays, but also your attraction revenues. We're obviously working together in which to create this critical mass within Bucket List AB. And certainly now that's, we've seen that, and it's working in some pretty interesting ways with now over 1.4 million enthusiasts that we've been able to connect with your experiences on. So it's been really exciting, and certainly there's some really strong momentum here. So I'm just curious to see if anyone has other questions. We are doing 2 updates. I was hoping to have some Vovia numbers for you today, but Carson and team weren't able to get them for us until next week. So we will have some numbers for the 15th of March. We've got a Travel Alberta midterm report to provide. And then our final report is due on the 26th of April. So in terms of numbers wise, we'll have some more details to that next week. But does anybody have any other questions with regards to efforts or stuff that's happening this season?
I mean, for us, we need to have a real hot March because we're way down. Visitation at Castle Mountain Resort is way off.
And would you attribute, how much of that would you attribute to this weather this year? I mean, it's just been, the temperatures have just been way crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of it. It's difficult to put a finger on it all, for sure. Tough start to the season, and then some tough weather, some some cold and below average snowfall. But so yeah, there's no question, but really hammering home the message that you know, spring has arrived, but it's still midwinter-like conditions. Is really from our perspective what we're going to be going down, and that every weekend there's programming, i.e. live music, free, all that kind of stuff.
Are you folks looking at extending your season?
What's that, sorry?
Are you looking at extending your season possibly?
We've used that tactic in the last couple of years where we've set a very conservative closing date of typically it's been April 1 or March 31st. And then we've used that tactic of season extension to try and create some buzz. The reality is, when we've done it, we've never made any money. I guess maybe we've made some goodwill with season pass holders, but it's always been a money-losing scenario on a day-to-day operational basis. So that's the very long answer, and the short answer is we are operational till April 7th, and that's it.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I just wanted to extend a thank you to Jim for all of your support. And I know you've been in the castle quite extensively over the winter, and it's been really good to have that support for marketing and developing those high-resolution, high-quality products. So thank you for your time and work with us.
Was that over to Cole?
I think that one was for you, Jim.
That was for you, Jim. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
That's a good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, obviously, you know, we're working with what we can in terms of moving the needle where we need to be. If you do have some sense of urgency events and some things that we can help to turn that dial on, then please share those with us. We obviously want to keep beating the drum, and we'll be doing that over this next bunch of weeks. Certainly understanding with castles closed for the 7th of April. We definitely will be updating some content and putting some more feelers out there in terms of generating that need to go now. But if you've got stuff that's happening, Duncan, if you've got anything, you know, from a spring break standpoint, from some of your attractions, anything that's happening in your communities that obviously, again, gives the immediacy to visit now, then please share that with us so we can update that content and get it out there. So that's what we find is the biggest driver and the biggest sort of igniter for people is those events and those, you know, experience things where it's like, oh, this is happening on Saturday. You need to be here.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, Jim, we are actually planning for when we're into blackout or that blackout period, so that our websites will be static but have a message. Our social media channels will be static but will have a message, and we're kind of stuck. So unfortunately, we're still having to wait until that election cycle is over.
Okay. Okay.
So what are?
Well, certainly. Go ahead, Cole.
What are the requirements? It's a situation where you can't even advertise on social media from the time the writ is dropped.
Right. Oh, and in fact, we can't present at conferences or workshops. We can't send out mail-outs. We can't put brochures on racks. It's a long, extensive list of what we can't. Like, we pretty much cannot do any marketing. The only thing that we can be active in is responding to questions, which are usual questions on social media. And that's it. And if someone doesn't follow that policy, there are hefty fines. In government, it would be probably automatic dismissal. So it's a different playing field. And because we're dealing with something new, those that are in decision-making positions are siding on the side of caution.
Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment.
Yeah, it's not fun here.
Well, I mean, it's a couple of weeks ideally, 2 months from now, 60 days, I guess, and it's all behind us.
Yep.
Yeah, so again, with the events and the attractions and the opportunities that exist for those of us outside of the governmental black hole, if you will, with the election, we have all those opportunities. So Cole, we'll talk more about the different things that we might be able to put into some triggers to get on with some more immediacy. And those that are listening to this via the recording, if you've got some immediacy that we can put into things, then we want to hear about that as well. So let's talk about summer in 2019. We've obviously ran a campaign last year and the year before that. I'm not sure, Duncan, if there's any updates. I'm hoping to have Jason on the line with us today, but just in terms of where and if there's been a conversation with regards to what's happening with Bucket List for this year.
And actually, we're still in some, I guess, conversations, probably with and brand alignment. Excuse me, with the Canadian Badlands is something that is being looked at, and I actually have a meeting coming up soon that will probably shed a bit more light on possibly what we're looking at for the next bit. So it's and this election thing it's caused on much of my side unusual stuff. Let's put it that way. But we will definitely be sharing some information about what some of the ideas are for moving forward.
And I know in the past we've talked about an approach to ATB in terms of the We Are Alberta campaign with the entrepreneur efforts that they've got. We've talked about some potentials with brands, right? And so now with the campaign having the momentum that it has and having the community engagement that it does, there's some real significant opportunities to talk with a brand in terms of attaching that to this campaign. And so the only piece of the puzzle with that is it obviously takes time. And so being now the middle of March, if you will, we obviously would need to move that conversation along. Has there been any discussion with regards to timelines, Duncan, in terms of like is that a sit down that you're doing with the folks from Canadian Badlands and how that would all integrate?
Yeah, and I hopefully will have something to be able to share next week, even at a higher level.
Okay, cool. Yeah, in terms of a collaboration, it'll be interesting to see how the southwest of the province, like how Southeast AB would be incorporated into the Badlands discussion, right?
Well, and you see this initiative that started in 2013 originally had, and Circle Tours was what it was called, but we were looking at from the crown of the continent, primarily being Waterton Glacier, Eastern Slopes, to the Canadian Badlands, and that was really covering southern Alberta entirely. Last year, Canalta brought in a Banff property, which was also something that at the very onset of this initiative or partnership, we were also looking at the potential of breaking into the Columbia River Valley. It's something that we did as a collaborative in the 90s that was extremely successful, and really trying to look at promoting travel from, I guess, that, and even starting to influence travel patterns, because we've seen Calgary, Banff, and then Banff, Vancouver, and they just punt right through, instead of looking at Calgary, Banff, Radium, Invermere, Cranbrook, back into the Crow's Nest or into Waterton area and so on, and doing a big circle back into Alberta in the southern part. I don't think we're going to be moving that into that large area, but really continuing to focus on the crown of the continent to the Canadian Badlands, but also recognizing that the Canadian Badlands geographic area is an extremely difficult one to explain. It doesn't make sense from a name perspective. And we're all looking at, doesn't matter. It's southern Alberta. We have mountains, we have prairies, we have everything in between. And it's a matter of then promoting experiences, but also encouraging travel across the board, presenting travel itineraries, and that's, I guess, the content that we've been gathering over the years is really starting to build on that, and I think that's a real strength.
Awesome. Well, I certainly, and I'm sure partners and those that folks like Waterton and Lethbridge who are ready to step to the line for summer 2019 and are committed to that, I'm sure they're going to appreciate those updates because if there is now with that momentum, a brand alignment that we can bring to the table, it only helps obviously everyone, right?
Yeah.
And just speaking to the Crown of the Continent discussion, we had a meeting with them at 9 o'clock actually, and they're looking to republish the Crown of the Continent geotourism map and guide, and it's published through National Geographic. So maybe if there's high resolution photos and images of the castle that was captured by sun seekers, that could be something that could be implemented and utilized in this publication.
Do you know, is that a summer, having that new map guide come out in the summer, or is that, do you know what's involved in it?
I think it's aimed for the summer. It's a collaboration with a lot of different stakeholders across the border as well. I can send you the link to their information, and you can see how that dovetails and aligns with our priorities as government.
Oh yeah, no, and I was directly involved in that project way back when, it's just new information, which is great. Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any further discussion about summer 2019 that needs to be had right now, or maybe that's a separate conversation that happens post your time next week, Duncan.
Okay.
I think the only thing I'll add to that is the government has something called the Innovation Fund. So for the winter cycle, I wasn't able to properly get everything together to the extent that I wanted to. But my goal is for the summer-fall cycle is to create a proposal about creating online videos about ecological, cultural, and historical information for the public to use online. So maybe that's something that Duncan, Cole, and I and Sunseekers could collaborate on. Castle Mountain Resort providing those outdoor literacy skills on video, like how to pack, how to get ready for a trip in the backcountry, and then cultural aspects, talking to elders, and then for the ecological, talking to our ecology team. So I sent Jim the proposal. It's still a skeleton and it needs to get revised. And I think if we put in good effort, we could probably get between $100,000 and $150,000 from the Innovation Fund to get this off the ground.
Cool. And Shaylin, is there any further detail that you needed from me in terms of that follow-up that I've provided?
No, that's perfect. Now it's just honing and crafting a proposal so that it meets the expectations for the ask at the level that we're asking for. If it had been a smaller budget, I think I could have just slid it under, like if it was under $10,000. But because I'm going for one of the bigger pots of money, I think we should be really thoughtful in our approach and make sure it's a good representation of our work.
Well, I think what's really cool about that, and I know Cole and Duncan and the rest haven't seen that, but what's really interesting about it is it's full of timely, helpful, and relevant how-tos about outdoor recreation. Obviously utilizing the castle in the southwestern region as a sort of designate of where that content's shot, and obviously, from a location standpoint. So I think a lot of that could really be dovetailed into the bucket list program as well, and used in a whole bunch of variety so that we ultimately are not only generating the content, but it's also getting some really mass appeal and some mass response. So
absolutely, and keeping people safe. I see a lot on the Hiking Alberta, really dangerous activities like people walking on cornices, and I cringe when I see it. So if we can try to address public safety and park management concerns, as well as increase knowledge about ecological and traditional knowledge, I think that will go a long way.
It's definitely a trend in where content is going in terms of relevancy and how you can provide really thought-provoking details to people, and whether that's editorial, video, social, or photos. And so, again, I think it fits a whole bunch of buttons, and certainly something that I think can really be incorporated into future programs here. Well, that's all I have for us this morning. I just really wanted to provide that update for you and some additional details and just get some conversation happening and answer any questions. Cole, I'm going to follow up specific again on some event triggers that we might be able to pull some immediacy on and update Andrew Penner and make sure that they've got all that for the Herald. While at the same time, from a parks perspective and from a historical attractions perspective, we're just being sensitive to the election while we're doing what we can to get the biggest bang for your buck out now.
I'm going to get some content for you guys to use to support the events that are upcoming here at the resort.
That would be grand.
Push it through your channels. I'll have Nick do that for you.
That'd be stellar. Yeah. And then if you've got any issues with the content, or if you just want to connect Nick to Nancy anyways, then she can just provide back to the same stuff that we're providing you, but just maybe keeps you out of in the middle.
Sure.
And then Jim, if you have a chance, and there's no rush on this, but if you could send the Dropbox with all of the different content about the castle, that way I can start to sort and see and sift what can be utilized in our upcoming publications and maps and brochures. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Okay, team. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to connect this morning. As mentioned, I'll have some more updates for you here in the next week or two. And Duncan, looking forward to hearing from you with regards to what comes out of your meeting next week. Obviously, time is obviously with this program, it always seems to be that we're running behind an 8 ball, and I would really like to get some timelines in here that can really help us get caught up, and if nothing else, then really start to get into a brand discussion as well with someone like an ATV, because they've got needs that they want to do, and influencer efforts and content marketing is of key concerns for them too. So it'd be good to be able to get that out in front of them sooner than later, so that we don't find ourselves too late trying to get things done too quickly with not enough time.
All right.
So thanks again for your time this morning, folks. And as mentioned, anything specific further on content, then please reach out and we'll get you sorted on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your partnership in this and the continued opportunity to working together. It's been really valued, and I know our team really, really appreciates the commitment you've made to Seekers, and we hopefully continue our delivering on our side. So thanks again for that. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, great.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Okay, bye for now. Bye for now.
Meeting.